Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuh. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin, wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah. Today we're going to discuss how our physical world, our physical realm is connected to our psycho-spiritual realm, and what are the organs that is complementing in our understanding of the nature of human existence. So I have explained to you in the previous video psycho-spiritual basis for Islamic psychology and PI-CBT, and how we use this format or this model by Al-Imam Ghazali rahimahullah about the nature of the qalb, which is the master programmer, then the nature of the ruh, the akal and the jasad, and how the nerves interface at the various levels of existence. So naturally, in modern psychology, we will have to use many of the tools, and some of these tools are cognitive tools. Some of these tools are using gadgets, electronic sensing, MRI, functional MRI, PET scan, heart rate variability machine, and so on. So we as Muslims will have to develop a research-based protocols in which we can then say, okay, this is how we operate insofar as the psychology of this modern world, how Islamic psychology can fit into this whole realm of psychology, neurosciences, quantum physics, and whatever other sciences that's moving on very fast. So what are we going to say to them? Because then they will say, okay, what is the relationship between your heart, for example, and your qalb, and how are you going to relate to this? So I'm just going to give you a discussion, because as I say, this knowledge is something that we all have to work on, but it is not something that I can definitely define, because I don't have a laboratory to do all that work. But inshallah, in the future, when we have a number of Islamic universities around the world, they can do those kind of research, replicate what is being done at the for example, at the various universities, whether there's Oxford University, whether it is MIT, and all over the world, they're doing all kind of research in which, if you study, it will be very deep in terms of their empirical proof of what they are doing. So we Muslims must have the same empirical proof, but naturally, when we talk about the psycho-spiritual, that proof cannot be measured in a way that we can measure, for example, neurological processes. So I just want to give you some ideas so that we can start thinking about this, so that inshallah, as we develop our positive Islamic cognitive behavior therapy, or the whole framework for Islamic psychology in which I'm thinking about to the world, we can have some via media of how we can define ourselves, even though some of these ideas may not be directly relevant, but there are a lot of indicators. For example, if we talk about our psycho-spiritual physical connection in Islamic psychology, we know that our existence comes from where? We came from where? We came from the command of Allah. When Allah command our existence, we became. So first Allah command the existence, our existence in the spiritual realm and the realm of Azali before even the universe. That is the nature of the Islamic existence. We are a spiritual being before we are even a physical being. Then from the realm of the creative process of which Allah caused this manifestation of this universe to exist, alright, then Allah created us. That means after the universe 13.7 billion years ago, kun fayakun, and then it became, and then we are then fused with this jasad. Alright, our nerves contain our spiritual self, our emotional self, our mental self, and our physical self. So this is our nerves as we exist on this earth. Alright, so how then these nerves as we exist on this earth relate to our organs? For example, if we talk about the brain, now there's a lot of brain sciences. They are doing a lot of research. They use PET scan, functional MRI, they're using heart rate variability, they use all the various sensors to do brain scan and so on. So how this akal we are talking about relates to the brain, because our akal is transcendental. Our akal is not just the brain. So for example, if these so-called neurologists who are atheistic, they say, okay, is everything in the brain? There's no such thing as this entity called akal, because this is a higher level. This is the spiritual concept. This is a realm of which is beyond space, beyond time. Yes, we can explain it from perspective. Yes, this is not just the physical body, but it is the consciousness, from the realm of consciousness, and we can prove it from quantum physics, for example, quantum mechanics, and the nature of consciousness from perspective of quantum sciences. We can do that. Yes, we can prove that, and in fact, there is many ways of proving it. So then, at least we can have some sort of dialogue, okay? Because you say, no, everything, the brain is be all and all. You say, no, there is a higher brain, we call it the supraconscious that comes from the realm of God. All right, or you can call it universal consciousness, whatever field force that is there. All right, it is there, and this can be scientifically proven. All right, and so then we will have to bring our claim. All right, so I'm going to show you some of these videos later on of this relationship, because these are all research done by non-Muslims. Remember, in this 21st century, we Muslims are very backward, but a lot of non-Muslims scientists and psychiatrists and neuroscientists, as well as their physicists, are combining, they're pulling together to develop an idea of the nature of human consciousness, which I have given you a taste just in the previous video. So if we talk about our brain, all right, the neurological concept that is being developed is so fantastic, so wonderful. But then if we link to our akal, the higher mind, okay, supraconscious mind, all right, in which it is endowed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we can see how this is related. The same thing, if we talk about the qalb, the heart, all right, this is our physical heart. How is it related to the qalb, our spiritual heart? So the spiritual heart is linked to the physical heart because it creates in ourselves the intuitive self. So the intuitive nature of our existence, that affects the feelings in our physical heart, the emotions in the physical heart comes from a realm beyond space, beyond time. This again can be proven. All right, there are a lot of research in that area which are being done again by non-Muslim scientists. So we can then posit our position, all right, in this area. We can leapfrog. That means we can use this and say, okay, we can prove this, we can prove this. How are we going to prove this? This is the most difficult part, because how you can say the raw, because within the physical realm, our raw is linked to our jasad. But in the ancient texts, Al-Imam Ghazali and Ibn al-Qayyim and all the rest, they are talking about this nature of the raw that is linked to the life force. So the life force, as we say today, because the nature of life itself is a mystery. What is the difference between life and death? All right, that is the dialogue that is going on. So from the perspective of life, the life force is also a form of ruh. It's a form of something that is not physical. Because if I tell you we are living, we are alive, what do you mean by that? Oh, we are alive because all our organs are functioning and we are conscious of our existence. But what is we are alive post-death? What is the difference? What is that nature of consciousness, that this nature of the ruh, the higher form, beyond this jasad? So how is it linked to the jasad of our physical body in this world? So there's a lot of research here again. So each and every one of these areas has tremendous potential for us to bring across a wonderful framework of Islamic psychology. I'm not equipped to do all that. I have some amount of knowledge as a generalist. My friend used to say you are, you know many things, but I say yes, I know many things generally. All right, but I'm not a specialist. Okay, so we have to have specialists who can then develop this idea, and this only can come about from research from the various universities, the various practitioners who can carry this Islamic psychology at a higher level of high level of acceptance, especially within the ummah. First within the ummah, always we talk about within the ummah, and then at a higher level we can then sell this idea to the world, because whatever they are trying to prove is already proven in Islam, which is the irony. Whatever scientific discovery they are discovering is consonant with the worldview of Islam that was formulated 1,000 years ago. Imam Ghazali, 550 after Hijrah. It's about 1,000 years. So this is where we can see how we can help to develop a wonderful ummah. And I'm not going to dwell very deep into this, because as I said, these are areas of sciences that need a lot of specialists. It's not something journalists like myself can say, okay, this is the nature of this, nature of this, nature of this. I can only refer back to the works of our great scholars, and then I can tell you, okay, this is what we know as so far, and how are we going to prove it, that is something that is beyond our capacity as an ummah now. But we can do, inshallah, over the next many years, as we develop the protocol, the format, and the idea of positive Islamic psychology, as well as the framework for Islamic psychology, and we develop this positive Islamic cognitive behavior therapy, then we can help the ummah, because we have the ummah. The 1.7 billion Muslims are facing a lot of problems. We have a lot of psychological problems among the 1.7 billion people. So how are we going to help out? First, ourselves within the ummah, and develop a framework that is acceptable to all Muslims, and then develop a framework that can be accepted to all humanity. And inshallah, if we do that, we will achieve great success in this world and the hereafter, and we bring about an Islam based on ilm, on knowledge, because Allah has told us many times of being ulil albab, being people who think, people who reflect over the creation of the heavens and the earth, people who reflect over the existence of the water cycle, of the clouds bringing rain, people who reflect about the sailing of the ships on the ocean, people who reflect on the nature of the cosmos, people who reflect on the nature of our inner self, people who reflect on this all over the Quran, hundreds of times. Why? Because Islam is a deen based on knowledge. It is knowledge centric. The truth will always prevail, because Allah tells us, وَقُلْ جَالْ حَقُّ وَزَحَقَ الْبَاطِلِ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا. Said that when truth comes, the batil will disappear. For surely the batil is just it's a very minor thing. So we know this truth that Allah has given us, but we have not exercised the deep understanding of this truth. And by exercising this deep understanding of this truth, inshallah, we will develop a very strong framework for Islamic psychology, and this will help us to solve a lot of problems within the ummah. And inshallah, my humble work that I'm trying to do, just these little videos that I'm putting out almost each time I'm free, to just give the motivation for those who have this better knowledge. If you are a psychologist, or you are a psychiatrist, or you are a physicist, or you are inclined to certain area of sciences, Islam brings about a very integrative science of the nature of man, the nature of existence, the nature of God, which is beyond us, but at least from the attributive aspect, we can understand this beautiful deen that Allah has presented to the world through our beloved and His beloved Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, His kinfolks, His sahabas, the tabi'in, the tabi'in, the great scholars that we all appreciate and love. And from them to us, this baton will pass on until Yawmul Akhir, inshallah.